When you lose your composure in an argument, you forfeit far more than a point. You surrender respect, inner peace, and, above all, control over yourself. The one who raises his voice exposes his own fragility, because volume is the last refuge of those who cannot command their emotions. A Stoic never allows himself to be dragged into the mud where others thirst for conflict. He keeps his expression steady, speaks calmly and only when necessary. That is where real strength reveals itself. Today, more than ever, the ability to respond without losing your center is essential. This is not about staying silent, nor about covering weakness with decorative words. The true art lies in choosing phrases that establish boundaries, halt hostility, and prevent you from being pulled into pointless disputes. Respect is not begged for, it is earned by refusing to descend to another's level. In this lesson, you'll discover 5 expressions that work like invisible weapons. They do not wound, yet they halt anyone who tries to manipulate, shout at, or demean you. These short, direct lines, infused with Stoic clarity, help you remain anchored even in the most tense moments. True power isn't responding to anger with more anger. It is showing that nothing can shake the quiet fortress within you. Rule 1. Calm is stronger than shouting. Calmness is like a deep, silent river that keeps flowing despite branches, stones, or noise tossed into it. No matter what falls into it, the water continues forward, unshaken and steady. That is its strength. You must remain the same when someone tries to unbalance you. Do not let minor waves disturb your course. Each time you lose your cool or raise your voice, you hand control to the other person. Your correctness doesn't matter anymore. The moment you shout, your authority dissolves, because you are reacting from emotion, not reason. Staying calm doesn't mean being weak or tolerating disrespect. It means you don't need volume to be heard. The one who can keep his voice level shows mastery of the mind, the purest form of inner strength. In conflict, shouting is a trap, luring you into an emotional arena where the opponent hopes to see you fall. When someone starts yelling, the first thing you should do is slow your breath and remind yourself that you do not have to play by their rules. A steady voice forces the other person to confront the inappropriateness of their own behavior. Cold calmness becomes a mirror, reflecting their lack of control and revealing who truly holds the ground. This contrast commands respect and often stops a pointless argument in its tracks. A common misconception is that calm equals submission. Real calm is not fear or surrender. It is the deliberate choice to speak with clarity, brevity, and steadiness, free of irritation or volume. It shows that your composure stands above any provocation. When one person yells and the other speaks calmly, the difference in strength becomes impossible to ignore. Calmness disarms aggression. It breaks its rhythm and shifts the direction of the exchange. It is a powerful tool, rarely mastered, yet capable of turning conflict into conversation or extinguishing it before it spreads. To cultivate this discipline, begin with a simple practice: the pause. Do not answer an attack immediately.
Before you speak, make a conscious effort to pause. Inhale deeply and exhale slowly. This brief moment not only gives your mind a chance to organize your thoughts, but also shows that you refuse to react impulsively. The pause becomes a tool that helps you find the right tone and choose the most fitting words. Maintain steady, confident eye contact, not aggressive, but grounded. This signals that you are fully present, unshaken, and in control. Your body language can reinforce your message stronger than any speech. Remember, calmness is not an inborn trait. It's the result of consistent practice. Start with small things, when someone cuts you off on the road, when the line moves too slowly, or when you're interrupted mid-sentence. These everyday moments are training grounds for your emotional resilience. With each minor victory, you strengthen mental discipline so that, in a real conflict, your response is deliberate rather than instinctive. Stoic philosophy reminds us real strength lies in mastering what is within your control, and your reaction is always your domain, even if the external world seems chaotic or unfair. The one who remains calm amid noise and disorder not only protects inner peace, but naturally earns respect, even from those who tried to provoke him. Over time, people understand that shouting at you is useless. You don't give them the emotional fuel they expect. They're forced to change their tone or back down. This is the triumph of composure over shouting. Second principle, don't fight on someone else's ground. A falcon never descends to earth to battle a snake. It knows that the moment it lands, it loses its advantage, its height, its speed, its dominion. Instead, it lifts the snake into the sky, a place where its own strength becomes absolute, and there the snake is powerless. You must act the same way when someone tries to drag you into conflict. Never accept the fight on the battlefield chosen by your opponent. Every time you engage in shouting, insults, or sarcasm, you lower yourself to their level, surrendering the power of reason and inner stability. True wisdom lies in shifting the conflict to a space where the other person loses control, the space of your calm, your logic, your silence. That is where your advantage becomes undeniable. Most arguments start from trivial sparks, but grow into storms because someone accepts the invitation to chaos. When someone provokes you, they are setting a trap. They want you to respond in kind, with irritation, anger, or emotion. The moment you take the bait, the conversation stops being an exchange of ideas and turns into a clash of impulses. And in that arena, the winner is not the one who is right, but the one who manages to destabilize the other. Stoicism teaches a simple rule. You are not obliged to play by someone else's rules, nor must you answer on the battlefield they choose.
You have every right to shift the conflict to ground where you can keep your balance and control. Often, that terrain is nothing more than your decision to stop engaging. Refusing to fight on someone else's battlefield does not mean running away or accepting injustice. It means refusing to let chaos take command of you. Maintaining control means speaking calmly while the other person shouts, sticking to facts when they resort to insults, or simply stepping away when the conversation stops being a dialogue. This isn't weakness, it's self-respect. A person who can defend their boundaries without venom or humiliation earns far more respect than someone who mirrors the poison thrown at them. Calmness is not submission, it's strategy. In everyday life, this principle becomes clear. If someone mocks you with sarcasm, don't mirror it back. If they raise their voice, don't raise yours. Use short, firm statements that draw the line. I won't continue this conversation in that tone. Or, when you're ready to speak respectfully, we can continue. These phrases signal that you refuse to play by their rules. One of the most common mistakes is trying to prove strength by copying their hostility. We mistakenly think silence or stepping back equals weakness, when in truth, the opposite is true. Falling into anger means handing the other person control over your behavior. Choosing not to participate in that emotional exchange shows that you hold the reins. It tells the other person that you determine how and where the conversation can happen. Dignity isn't defended in chaos. It's preserved by refusing to sink into it.
This skill grows only through consistent practice. Start by noticing what situations disturb your inner balance. Pay attention to your body's signals, your breath speeding up, your shoulders tightening, your voice rising. These are reminders to pause and take back control. Take a slow breath, relax your posture, and use a few steady, intentional words. These small acts return authority to you. With time, you'll learn to detect provocation before it hooks you. A falcon doesn't descend to the ground because it knows that's where it becomes vulnerable. Likewise, never descend to the level of rudeness, manipulation, or shouting. Stay at your altitude, where your weapons are reason and composure. From that height, you not only protect your inner world, you force others to rise to your level if they want to be heard. True respect is earned not through aggression, but through the unwavering firmness of someone who knows they are not obligated to fight where they lose themselves. Third principle: demand respect before you speak. A word is like a doorway. It does not open for those who pound on it violently or try to force it with shouting. It opens only for those who know how to knock with respect. If you let everyone in without knocking, eventually they destroy everything inside. Dialogue works the same way. Without mutual recognition of boundaries, it collapses. Demanding respect before a conversation begins isn't arrogance, it's the foundation of real understanding. Without it, the exchange will inevitably spiral into a clash of egos.
In every confrontation, there is a decisive moment that shapes the entire course of the exchange. If you fail to set boundaries from the start, the other person assumes they have permission to raise their voice, interrupt you, or throw cutting remarks without consequence. And each time you continue speaking under such conditions, you silently confirm that your voice can be disregarded. Stoicism teaches that you cannot control what others say, but you can always control how and to whom you give your attention. Not everyone deserves your response, and not every conversation deserves your time. Demanding respect is, at its core, an act of protecting your inner stability. Respect begins not with words, but with your presence. Keep your expression calm, without a mocking smile or submissive posture. Let your face and stance show that you refuse to continue if the tone remains disrespectful. Sometimes a simple line is enough. If you want this conversation to continue, lower your tone. A short but firm reminder that boundaries exist. The goal is never to beg for respect, but to make it clear that a dialogue cannot happen without it. This shifts responsibility onto the other person. If they want to be heard, they must adjust their behavior. Demanding respect also means refusing the instinct to over-explain yourself. Many waste their breath trying to justify their point to someone who isn't even listening. Every extra word given to someone who doesn't respect the dialogue is wasted strength. Train yourself to stop at short, deliberate statements. We can talk when you're ready to listen. I won't continue without respect. These phrases send a clear message. Your dignity is not negotiable. A common mistake is believing tolerance equals wisdom. But tolerating disrespect only encourages others to cross your boundaries more often. If someone raises their voice and you pretend nothing happened, you silently teach them that this behavior is acceptable. But when you calmly end the discussion and draw a line, the other person is forced to adjust if they want to be heard. Respect is not optional. It is essential. Practice this principle in small daily interactions. When someone interrupts you, ignores your words, or speaks with contempt, don't stay silent. Point it out calmly but firmly. Let me finish before you respond. If we keep interrupting each other, we'll resolve nothing. Such simple statements return control to you.
Over time, you'll notice people changing. They realize they cannot speak to you without respect. For you, it's not a request, it's a rule. Demanding respect is more than a strategy for heated moments. It is a continuous declaration of your inner value. The one who sets clear boundaries shows that they honor themselves and are not afraid to walk away in order to preserve their dignity. Fourth principle: step back to protect your peace. Fire survives only as long as it receives oxygen. Cut off its air supply, and even the strongest flame dwindles to ash. Conflicts work the same way. They exist only because someone keeps feeding them with words, reactions, and attention. Withdrawal is not defeat. It is the deliberate choice to cut off the energy that keeps the argument alive. Most conflicts are won not by the person who speaks the most, but by the one who knows when to fall silent and leave. If the conversation loses meaning, if reason gives way to raw emotion, your presence becomes useless. The ability to walk away from a conflict is not weakness, but a mark of self-respect. Sometimes insisting on being understood only fuels the other person's ego and destroys your inner calm.
Your inner peace is a treasure, and Stoicism teaches that it must be guarded, not wasted on battles that have no meaning. Strategic withdrawal is not an act of weakness, but a recognition that your mental balance is far more valuable than the need to prove yourself right. The key is to recognize the moment when a conversation ceases to be constructive. If voices rise, if arguments turn into personal jabs, if the other person seeks victory instead of understanding, the ground for dialogue has already collapsed. Persistence in such moments only feeds the chaos. That's when short, steady statements become your shield. Let's return to this when we're calm. Or, I don't see a reason to continue if the tone stays like this. These words don't sound like surrender. They signal self-respect. They make it clear that you are stepping back by choice, not out of fear. But stepping back isn't only physical. True withdrawal also means ending the argument inside your own mind. There is no point leaving a conflict outwardly if your thoughts continue replaying it over and over. Release the mental fight. Don't guard your external calm while letting your inner world burn. Here, Stoic discipline is crucial. Take a deep breath. Remind yourself that you cannot control someone else's behavior. Focus on what is yours to command, your thoughts, your reactions. Many people mistake retreat for defeat, but walking away does not mean you've lost. In reality, the true victory lies in refusing to let someone else disturb your mind. Those who try to drag you into an argument want to see you irritated, drained, and unbalanced. When you deny them that satisfaction, you take their power. The quiet peace that follows a conscious withdrawal is a deeper triumph than any argument you could win. To develop this habit, notice how often you stay trapped in useless debates just because pride won't let you walk away. Soon you'll realize most conflicts change nothing except your mood and your energy level. Practice speaking less, leaving earlier, and refusing to chase the last word. Not everything deserves your attention or your presence. The ability to recognize this is true mastery of the self. Strategic retreat earns respect because it sends a clear message. My inner world is not up for negotiation. You show that you will not fuel someone else's chaos with your energy. As a fire dies without air, a conflict fades when you refuse to feed it. Protecting your inner world means choosing not to burn in someone else's flames. You save your energy for what matters. Over time, people learn, you cannot be shaken. You know when to say enough and walk away with dignity. Fifth principle, speak little, but speak with certainty. Words are like arrows.
If you shoot them aimlessly, they lose their force. But when you choose your target and release just one well-aimed shot, it is enough to make an impact. In conflicts, excessive talking is like firing blindly. You exhaust yourself, lose precision, and give your opponent countless openings. When you use fewer words and deliver them with confidence, each sentence becomes heavier, sharper, more deliberate. A steady voice, even a quiet one, carries more weight than a loud, trembling one. Speaking little does not mean silencing yourself out of fear. It means choosing consciously when to speak and ensuring that what you say matters. In tense moments, unnecessary words often come from the urge to justify yourself or prove superiority. But in reality, they only strengthen the chaos and provide more opportunities for attack. Stoic wisdom is simple. Do not waste your energy on empty speech.
In every confrontation, there is a turning point that determines how the interaction will unfold. If you don't establish your boundaries from the beginning, the other person will assume they can raise their voice, interrupt you, or throw sharp remarks without consequences. And every time you continue the discussion under such conditions, you unintentionally confirm that your voice can be dismissed. Stoicism teaches that you cannot control what others say, but you can always control who receives your attention and how you respond. Not everyone deserves an answer, and not every exchange is worth your time. The ability to demand respect is essentially a way of protecting your inner calm. Respect in conversation begins not with words, but with nonverbal cues. Keep your expression neutral, neither condescending nor submissive. Through your posture and stillness, show that you won't continue the discussion unless the tone changes. Sometimes a single, simple line is enough. If you want this conversation to continue, lower your tone. This is a clear reminder that boundaries exist. The key is not to beg for respect, but to make it clear that no dialogue is possible without it. This shifts responsibility to the other person. If they want to be heard, let them adjust their behavior. Part of demanding respect also means breaking the habit of over-explaining yourself. Many people try to justify their views to someone who isn't even listening. Yet every unnecessary word given to someone who disrespects the conversation is wasted energy. Practice using short, steady lines. We'll talk when you're ready to listen. I won't continue without respect. These phrases communicate something essential. Your dignity is non-negotiable. A common mistake is believing that giving in is a sign of wisdom, but tolerating disrespect only encourages others to repeat it. If someone raises their voice and you pretend nothing happened, you show them their behavior is acceptable. By contrast, if you calmly stop the conversation and mark your limits, the person is forced to reconsider their approach if they want to be heard. Respect is not optional, it's required. Apply this principle in everyday interactions. When someone interrupts you, ignores you, or uses a belittling tone, don't stay silent. Point it out calmly and firmly. Let me finish before you respond. Or, if we talk over each other, nothing will get solved. These simple lines return control of the dialogue to you. Over time, people will begin to adjust. They'll learn that disrespect has no place with you. It's not a request, it's a rule. To demand respect is not a tactic reserved for heated moments. It's a continuous statement of your inner value. A person who sets clear boundaries shows that they respect themselves and aren't afraid to step away from a conversation to protect their dignity. Fourth principle. Step back to protect your inner world. Fire burns only as long as it has oxygen. Cut off the air, and even a blazing flame fades to ash. Conflicts work the same way. They survive only if someone keeps feeding them with words, reactions, and attention. Backing away is not defeat. It is a conscious choice to stop supplying the energy that sustains the argument. Most disputes are won not by the one who speaks the most, but by the one who knows when to stop and walk away. If a conversation loses direction, if emotions take over and reason disappears, your presence becomes meaningless. The ability to exit a conflict is not weakness, it is self-respect. Sometimes insisting on explaining yourself only destroys your peace and fuels the other person's ego, which might be focused solely on proving superiority. Stoicism teaches that inner calm is a treasure worth defending. Strategic withdrawal is not a sign of weakness, but a wise admission that your emotional balance outweighs your desire to prove a point. When voices rise, when arguments turn into personal attacks, when the other person seeks victory instead of understanding, the ground for dialogue is gone. Persistence only extends the conflict. At such moments, your best tools are short, calm phrases signaling the end of the exchange. "We'll continue when we're both calm." Or, "I don't see a point in going on if we're speaking in this tone." These lines don't sound like surrender, they affirm your dignity and show that you step away by choice, not out of fear. But true retreat isn't only physical. It means refusing to mentally replay the argument once the conversation ends. Leaving a conflict outwardly means nothing if you continue fighting it in your mind. Learn to release the internal tension tied to the dispute. External calm is meaningless if the storm still rages inside. Here, the discipline of Stoicism becomes essential. Take a slow, deep breath. Remind yourself that you cannot control the other person's behavior. Shift your focus to what is yours to command, your thoughts and your response. Many people mistake stepping away for losing. But leaving the argument does not mean you've been defeated. True victory lies in refusing to let your inner peace be destroyed. Someone trying to drag you into a fight wants to see you agitated, drained, off balance. When you refuse to give them that satisfaction, you take their power away. Calm after intentional withdrawal is a quiet triumph, far more meaningful than any verbal victory. Notice how often you stay in pointless arguments simply because of pride. Soon you'll realize that most arguments change nothing except your mood and your energy. Practice speaking less, leaving sooner, and avoiding the urge to have the last word. Not everything deserves your response or your presence. The ability to see the difference is real strength. Strategic retreat earns respect because it communicates something powerful. My inner world is not up for debate. You show that you will not feed someone else's chaos with your energy. Just as fire dies without oxygen, conflict weakens when you refuse to be provoked. Protecting your world means choosing not to burn in someone else's flames. You preserve your energy for what truly matters. With time, people will understand. They cannot shake you. You know when to say enough and walk away with dignity. Fifth principle: speak little, but speak with authority. Words are like arrows. If shot without aim, they lose their force. But a single arrow fired with precision is enough to hit the mark. In arguments, excessive talking resembles wild shooting. You tire yourself, lose focus, and give the opponent more openings to attack your reasoning. When you use fewer words and deliver them with certainty, each phrase gains weight. A quiet voice without tremor often leaves a stronger impression than a loud one. Speaking briefly does not mean speaking out of fear. It means choosing your moment and shaping your message so that every word has purpose. In tense situations, excessive speech usually comes from a desire to justify yourself or prove superiority. but it only fuels the chaos. Stoic wisdom is simple. Do not waste energy on empty words. Stoicism reminds us that speech is a tool, not a weapon. Use it only when it can bring clarity or move the situation forward. True strength doesn't require volume or length. It shows in precision and confidence. When you reduce your words to their essence, you avoid falling into endless, meaningless debates. Short lines such as, "I don't agree with that decision. I won't continue if this tone persists. I understand your view, but I'm not stepping away from mine." Clearly mark your boundaries without emotional excess or unnecessary detail. These clean, direct statements leave no room for manipulation or misinterpretation. Every word should land like a deliberate, measured strike, simple, clear, and stripped of clutter. Confidence is not only in the voice, but in the body. Steady posture, relaxed expression, and a firm gaze communicate more than any speech. If your voice is calm, but your eyes dart, you lose some of your presence. Speaking little with certainty is not merely a communication technique. It's a way of carrying yourself that says, "I know what I mean, and I don't need to repeat it to be understood." This restraint commands respect even from those who disagree with you. One of the most common mistakes is confusing verbosity with persuasiveness. Many assume that the more they explain, the stronger their argument sounds, but often the opposite is true. In an argument, the one who talks too much appears less secure. Knowing when to stop speaking is a sign of self-control. Every word beyond your main point becomes a thread the other.
Most verbal conflicts drag on not because the topic is deep, but because neither side is willing to yield. People mistakenly believe that the one who stops talking first is the one who loses. In reality, true victory lies in preserving your inner calm. Stoicism teaches that the goal is not to prove your correctness in every argument, but to remain in control of yourself. In a world where everyone is trying to be right, the wise person chooses peace over triumph. The urge to have the final word almost always comes from the ego. It's an attempt to protect yourself from looking weak or as though you back down. But what others think about who want a debate has no actual authority over your life. A free person is one who doesn't need constant validation. When you intentionally step back and refuse to engage in endless provocations, you demonstrate maturity and self-control, qualities far more respectable than any closing remark. Applying this principle requires patience and self-awareness. When you realize the conversation is circling the same points over and over, pause. Acknowledge that everything meaningful has already been said, and that any further comments will only prolong an exhausting exchange. A simple statement like, "I've already shared my view," or "I have nothing to add," ends the discussion calmly and without hostility. It's equally important to sit with the silence after you let the other person have the last word. Silence often feels awkward, and you may feel compelled to fill it with explanations or justifications. But this quiet is exactly what finalizes the argument. By allowing the silence to exist, you show that your confidence doesn't depend on speaking. You leave the other person alone with their own words, without your energy sustaining the conflict. A common mistake is assuming that giving up the last word weakens your authority. In truth, silence after a clear statement shows inner stability. Someone who doesn't feel the need for a concluding line displays strength and self-mastery. To develop this habit, start small. Don't prolong trivial arguments in daily life, whether in a queue, on the street, or online. Say what matters and stop. Over time, you'll feel how this releases you, and emotional triggers that once pushed you into long debates will lose their grip. Letting someone else finish is a way of rising above the conflict. It is not defeat, It is emotional maturity. By refusing to play the ego's game, you preserve your calm. Like an echo that sounds once and fades, you learn that not everything deserves an answer, and true strength lies in knowing when to stop. 8. Your worth doesn't depend on others' opinions. The sun doesn't ask for permission to rise, nor does it wait for applause to shine. It simply fulfills its nature, even when clouds hide it or people choose to remain in the shade. Your sense of self should work the same way in the face of criticism or conflict, steady, grounded, and independent of what others think. When your self-esteem hinges on outside approval, any criticism becomes an attack on your inner stability. But once you understand that your worth remains untouched by someone else's words, no one can disturb your peace. During arguments, people often try to strike at your sense of self, questioning your intelligence, your character, or your choices. This is not a search for truth, but an attempt to unbalance you. Stoicism teaches that other people's words are not facts. They are reflections of their inner state, not yours. When you distinguish between reality and opinion, you stop being vulnerable to manipulation. Your value isn't defined by praise or by criticism. It's rooted in your actions, your principles, and the inner world you cultivate. Every time you let someone else's opinion control your emotions, you surrender authority that should belong only to you. Remember, what people say about you does not change who you are. To reinforce this, practice listening without absorbing. Not every comment deserves a reaction. When someone tries to provoke you, ask yourself, is this true? If yes, use it to grow. If not, release it like a passing wind that leaves no trace. This approach forms the core of Stoic tranquility. It frees you from impulsive reactions because your emotions now arise from your own judgment rather than from someone else's tone or frustration. Often, the power of another's opinion comes only from the doubts we already carry inside us. Speak to yourself with the same respect you expect from others. Remind yourself, this doesn't define me. My worth doesn't depend on their view. These simple affirmations strengthen the mind and create an internal shield that deflects other people's labels. One of the most draining mistakes is trying to be liked by everyone. The urge to explain yourself and clear up every misunderstanding turns you into a hostage of other people's expectations. Not everyone will understand your truth, and that's natural. True respect begins with self-respect, staying loyal to your values even when others don't share them. When someone criticizes your appearance, your words, or your choices, pause and breathe. Ask yourself, does this define who I am? If the answer is no, let it go. Train yourself not to over-explain. With time, you'll feel the need for others' approval fade, and your inner peace will genuinely become unshakable.
8. Continuation. A light that doesn't depend on anyone's eyes. Your worth isn't shaped by someone else's opinion, because no one else lives your life or carries responsibility for your choices. Realizing this grants genuine freedom, a freedom that shields you from attempts to make you feel smaller than you are. It gives you a steady confidence that becomes visible in any conversation and any circumstance. Just as the sun keeps shining even when clouds obscure it or when no one is looking, you must learn to preserve your inner light untouched. Don't ask for permission to shine. Don't wait for approval to walk forward with your head held high. Each day offers a fresh chance to be yourself, regardless of who watches, who understands, or who judges. Let your calmness become your strength, and your confidence become your light. If you made it to the end of this journey, know that the spirit of Stoicism lives within you. Write, "I am Stoic," as a sign of inner mastery and dedication to the path of reason and tranquility. Thank you for being here. Keep cultivating your Stoic mindset, and remember, Calmness is the highest form of strength.